And we are back, baby. Welcome back to episode 19 of the Daniel Dargan Podcast. This is part 2, following on from last week, of how to let it go, how to stop overthinking. Last week, we delved into perspective, we delved into being mindful and those babysitters leaning into those vices. And if you haven't listened to part 1, I would advise you to. There were so many mindset frameworks which I've used to completely change my life. So I'll definitely give part 1 a listen, and in part 2, we're going to dive into some more. My favorite from last week's probably the HALT framework. I used that the most, and yeah, go get them. Part 2, going down, getting bucked. Okay. Obviously, one of the biggest reasons why people overthink, they're scared about what other people's opinions, right? They're scared about what other people are going to think of them, which is perfectly normal. There's no way we are ever going to eradicate that. And I think that's the most important thing to realize, is that I don't know anybody out there that's successful that doesn't have these thoughts. See people that say, I don't care what anyone else thinks. That's not true. We are all going to care. The idea isn't for us to not feel the feeling. It's to feel the feeling and then we do it anyway, right? So when it comes to overthinking, when it comes to stressors in our life, most of the time it's being held back from doing something. Okay, so most people, if they're not happy with how they look and feel, if they actually push themselves maybe to go to the gym, or if they lent into it with their diet, if they started running, if they maybe applied for that job, or maybe they were going out and starting their own business, a lot of people's worries would be solved if they actually just jumped head on first. But to do that, we have to realize that it's completely normal to start from the bottom, to suck. It's completely normal. And I want to, that's the first thing that we're going to talk about today, is that everybody has to start somewhere. Epictetus, one of the Stoics that we were talking about last week, he says, if you want to improve, be content with a thought of being foolish and stupid with regards to external things. Jordan Peterson talks about this as well. He talks about, and I've spoken about this in previous podcasts, Jordan Peterson talks about willingness to be the fool, and that is the precursor to transformation. Because if you're not willing to be the fool, if you're not willing to be stupid and put yourself out there, if you're not willing to look silly in front of your mates, then you're never really going to do anything different. Because what is different? It's the opposite of the same. And if you keep doing the same as everybody else, you will by definition get the same outcome that everybody else has. And if you want a different life, you want to be great, then we have to stand out. We have to be different. So we got to suck in the onset, and that's completely normal. I remember when I started posting videos, oh my God. So I'll tell you about my first ever video and how I started that. Oh my God, it was the first time. So I jumped on my stories first, my Instagram story, and I remember I said to one of the coaches at the gym I coach that as gym I'm actually going there in an hour. I said I wanted to start coaching. I had started my coaching qualification, and he says, okay, when are you going to start posting on social media? Because that's when you've truly committed to it, right? When he said that, my balls actually sank. Did they sank or did they go up through my mouth? Probably a bit of both. Vulgar, I know. He said, I want you to make a video today, and it has to be out by 6 p.m. So I'd love telling people the idea that I was going to start posting on social media. But see, when it actually came to it, wow, oh my God, the feeling was I actually soiled my trunks. It was not the one. So he says, I want that up by 6 o'clock. So there's a few important lessons from that as well. Number one, it's never going to feel right. Number two, it's always going to be easier when you have accountability. So how can you make sure that you have accountability? So if you're going to put yourself out there, have somebody else hold you accountable. It's like when I would coach a lot of coaches as well, and I hold them accountable to doing those things. I hold our guys accountable to going to the gym and nailing their food. So how can you have somebody hold you accountable to that? And I remember going on, I must have recorded the story. I sat in my car and I recorded the story. I used an app called Teleprompter. I'm giving myself up now. So I used an app called Teleprompter, and you could basically type out what you wanted to say, and then it would come up on the screen as you recorded it. And it sounded so robotic. Hi guys, I'm just jumping on. You know the way people say, "Hi guys, I'm just jumping on here." When did that start? I'm just jumping on here. I don't know when that started. Cringe, right? But we lean into it. I'm just jumping on here to tell you that I'm going to start coaching out of Revolution Fitness. Like honestly, what a rookie. Honestly, it is embarrassing when we look back, but that's the beautiful thing about it. The fact that it was so uncomfortable. I looked so foolish. And it must have looked so shite, but that's the beauty of it, because when you look really shite, the only place that's going is up from there, right? It can never get any worse. So to get good at anything, you have to be foolish at it at the start. To get good at something, you have to be bad at something. That is so important for us to remember. When it came to my first public speaking video, when it came to my first public speaking gig, I was nervous for sure, but we went and done it anyway. And I approached it with the mindset of, if this is an absolute shambles, good, because I'm going to learn a lesson from here. And when we catastrophize in our head, maybe about going to the gym or starting that diet, or, you know, starting that business, or speaking to your boss, or approaching that girl, what I want you to do, if you're worrying about it, I want you to follow to the end of the thought loop. Okay, so you've opened that loop, right? And you catastrophize, you think, oh my gosh, I don't want to do it, it's uncomfortable. Ask yourself the question. Okay, so I'll give an example. Let's look at me public speaking. I don't want to do it. I'm really nervous. Okay, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, I forget my words on stage, or I lose my train of thought. Then what? Then I go really red, I feel uncomfortable, and I see people around the room looking at me. Well, then what? Then I probably pick up a minute or two later, and then I finish, and it's a really ropey presentation. Then what? Well, then it finishes, and then people talk about it. Okay, then what? Well, I go on with my day, and then what? People will eventually forget these things. You're not that important that people will remember this for the rest of your days. And I want you to think about the last 5, 10 times that you remember strangers embarrassing themselves. I bet you can't think of at least 3. Doesn't that give you so much more confidence to push yourself and do those uncomfortable things? Because you know, even if you do make a fool of yourself, people will not remember. Today's newspaper, tomorrow's chip shop paper. That's the quote. And you know what you need to do? You know it's never going to be comfortable. So we just have to do it and realize that we're never going to die. And I understand that's why we don't do these things, because, you know, thousands of years ago, if we were outcasted by our tribe, that was a dangerous place to be in. We could have died. So we want to fit in. We don't want to be outcasted. We don't want to be different. But in today's day and age, we know we know that we're not going to die. We know that we are safe. So realizing that is so important. Follow to the end of the loop. Realize it's not the end of the world. People will forget about it. Like, I've made so many balls ups in my days. I remember back in high school musical days, I should probably give some context in case you haven't listened to another podcast before. So when I was in P7, I was the Troy Bolton in High School Musical play. I thought I was the man. Anyway, not the point. You done 3 plays. You done 2 for the school, and then you maybe done 1, or you done 2 on parents' night, and then you done 1 in front of the school. And on the last one, there was a basketball net, and I mean, I literally was like 2 feet away, 3 feet away, and I had to throw this basketball into the hoop, and it was like, Troy Bolton, he shoots, he scores. And like the first 2 I got it no problem. This third one I missed, right? And it they obviously carry on with the script. He shoots, he scores. Oh my God, what a basket, whatever it was. And I missed it, and it bounced off the rim into the crowd, and that was so embarrassing. I was so affronted. I honestly thought the world's gonna end. Do you think people talk about it? Do you think people talked about it a week later? No. Do you think people talked about it 2 days later? Maybe. Who cares? Am I 25 and laughing about it now? Yes. So I want you to remember these things. People move on. Life goes on. And whether you want to hold yourself back, that's your choice. The sun's still going to rise in the morning. It's still going to set at night. So do what you need to do. Feeling comfortable, do it anyway, right? Then letting it pass. That's the next one. Let it pass. And Marcus Aurelius, who wrote Meditations, again, I said in the last podcast, I think he was born in 120 AD. I could be wrong with that. I could be pulled out of my hole. I'm pretty sure that's right. He says, the rock that the waves crash over and eventually you're the rock that the waves crash over and eventually the raging sea falls still around you. There might be turbulence in your life today. Life might be throwing curveballs at you. You might feel stressed. You might feel anxious. But this too shall pass. You're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Put one foot in front of the next. Do what you need to do that's going to make you feel better by the end of today. Think about you of tomorrow. How can I make them feel fantastic? And keep showing up. Because eventually, the sea will become calm. Eventually, the storm is going to fade away and life is going to be sweet. Life's going to be fine. So, if anything, just remember that your life's going to be okay, no matter what. And that what's the quote? Life's going to be okay, and if it's not okay, then it's not the end, right? That's something I always tell myself. It always works out in the end. And if it doesn't work out, it's not the end. And Alex Hormozy talks about, if you were to create a human, what would you put them through? If you were to create a human, what would you put them through? Would you put them through struggle? Would you put them through pain? Would you put them through hardship? Or would you make it all sunshine and rainbows? Would you give them an easy life? Would you never test them? No, of course you wouldn't. You would put them through pain. You put them through struggle. You put them through hardship, because you know that on the other side of that is an individual that grows, is an individual that learns from those lessons and becomes stronger. If you never go through hardship, you never become strong. So I want you to remember that if you're being tested right now, that is to help you grow. That's going to make you a stronger person. Any time that you have grown in your life has not come from the sunshine and rainbows. It has not come from the days where you have not been tested. It has came from the days where you've had your back against the wall, where you have thought, why is this happening to me? Where you've thought, I'm in a rut. That is when you have grown the most. That's why you're resilient today. And this, what you're maybe feeling right now, that's another example of that. So remember that you're going to be better off the back of this. Oh, I got passionate there, didn't I? I felt bad. I'm feeling it. I can feel it in my plums. The next one is keep going. It's the only way. Keep going. It is the only way. The only way is through. So if you're struggling, if you're overthinking, if you're going through something right now, maybe it's a breakup, maybe it's maybe you are struggling with your mental health. What's the alternative is the question I would put to you. What's the alternative to keep moving forward? Stopping the things that make you feel good. You know, when we're feeling good, everybody can go to the gym, everybody can eat well. I understand there's more friction when things are tough, but that's when we need to do the most. That's when we need to double down, and those habits count as two. But I need you to keep going. I need you to put one foot in front of the other, because when you do that, when you do those hard things, your life is going to become easier. And if you keep doing the easy things and taking the easy route, if you keep scrolling, you keep watching the porn, you keep skipping the gym, you keep snoozing the alarm, your life is going to be difficult. And it's your choice. And that's the beauty of it. It's a liberty, not a burden. So you make that call today. But I need you to keep going, no matter what. And when I was going through a breakup 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, or longer now, I was going through a breakup. We were going out for maybe 6-7 years. I felt like my back was against the wall, and I was flustered. I was overwhelmed, and I thought, okay, what is it? Like, the only thing I need to do here is actually boil it down to one day. Instead of thinking about the next week, instead of thinking about months ahead, focus on today. How can I make sure today is a good day? Okay, look at the inputs, your food, your training. That's it. Can you nail those? Yes. Great. Now let's move on to the next day. Copy and paste that. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, break it and scale it. Break it down, scale it down to size. Focus on nailing today, and just keep putting one fruit in front of the other. And as I said in the last point, it will pass. So those two are so key. And recognizing that, what does it cost you if you don't do it? If you're in a position where, you're struggling or you're overthinking and you're not showing up for yourself, write down 15, 20, 30 reasons, 30 things this is costing you. This is costing me my peace of mind. This is costing me my mental health. This is costing my confidence, my sex life, anything like that. Write it down, and then you will get a clear understanding of why you need to keep showing up for yourself and to keep going. The next one is, oh my gosh, the next one really hit me. I was, as I always talk about, I was a ball bag back in the day. I was somebody that slabbered. I was somebody that was just, I would have ridiculed you. I would have talked about other people that I didn't know. And, I was never a bully. I was just somebody that would have always passed comments to strangers. It wasn't even people I knew. It was strangers. I was always good to the people I knew, mostly. But yeah, I just wasn't a good person before, and I made peace with that now. And again, I suppose part of what I do now is try to be a positive impact on the world, try to have a positive impact in the world, and be a positive force for the world. Maybe subconsciously that's the make up for who I was before, and this is a really honest conversation. And maybe that's due to the guilt that I had for a past life. Maybe that is the way. And I'm literally just firing straight from the hip here. So me and you were having an open conversation today. But I want you to remember on that point as well, that you are not your past. You don't need to beat you up today for who you were years ago. You're not that guy anymore. Those things you did back then, that's not who you are today. So let it go. Stop beating yourself up over what's done. And focus on what you have today. Focus on being a good person today, being a positive force for the world today, being strong, being resilient, and being the best version of you so that you can show up for the best around you. You can show up for the people that you care about the most. That's all you have control over. So stop beating yourself up and move forward from today. But again, on that, you don't need to have an opinion. As I said, I always would have been a slabber. When you stop slabbering about other people, and for anyone who doesn't understand like Belfast slang, like chatting shit, slandering other people, putting other people down, like when you stop chatting shit about people, when you stop being negative about other people, you will save so much energy. You will be such a much more positive person, because when you focus on the negatives with everybody, you become a negative individual. You start looking for the negatives in people as soon as you see them. Whereas if you start looking for the positives, you will start looking for positives in everybody. And you don't have to have an opinion. You don't need to say, this person's great, this person's not. You can just, if somebody's given their opinion and you don't like it, you can walk away. And that's been huge for me, is how can I, and I catch myself on sometimes, sometimes I catch myself being like, even if someone's a dick, we don't need to lie as well. If somebody's a dick, they're a dick. But not giving those people your energy, that's huge. You have the power to tune that out and focus on what really matters, which is you, and not get involved in anything petty, not get involved in bullshit. And, I found myself in circles before where, to fit in, I felt like I needed to slabber about people. And, when I stopped that, I was like, I actually don't have anything in common with these people. So I need to remove myself from that. And that's going to be lonely, but that's okay, because I want to be the best version of me and put my energy into me. So that's what I want you to think about. Are the people around you bringing you up, or are they bringing you down? Or you do feel better after leaving their company or not? Like, let me know. I'd love to know. And then lastly, I've written down here the one thing which, it's the one strategy which I always use. And if I'm stressing out about something, if I'm overthinking, I write down all the things that I'm worried about. I cross out the things that I can't control, and I focus on the things I can. This strategy right here is going to completely stop you from overthinking. This strategy right here is going to allow you to eliminate and mitigate your stress. Write out the things that you're worried about. Score out the things that you can't control and focus on the things that you can. And with the things that you can, put a list of priority, of things that are stressing you out the most. And with number one, you ask yourself, what is the smallest thing that I can do today to move forward with that? And that's what you do. Then you work through that list. You'll be left with a smaller list. You'll not be as overwhelmed, and you'll be able to move forward with that. Clarity mitigates overwhelm. So break it down to size, and it's going to completely change the game for you. So just a few of the points, and even from last week as well. Don't suffer before you need to. We suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. So do not suffer before you need to. You have the power to decide whether something makes you anxious or not. You are in control. Be mindful. Look at those babysitters with devices through your phone, through porn, through alcohol. If you're feeling stressed out or anxious, make sure that you're not leaning into those vices, because that is only going to exacerbate those feelings. And they are the reason why you're not giving yourself time to think and actually clearly work through those problems. So remove those vices, sit with those issues, maybe sit for 10-15 minutes every day and think. Sit at the front when you're having a coffee in the morning, go for a C-dip, or when you're sitting in the shower, have a think about those things and declutter your mind. As I said about Naval Ravikant, he clears his email inbox in his head for 30 minutes every day. So how can you do that? Shift your perspective, because how we think is how we feel. So ask yourself, give yourself advice in third person. What would Daniel do if he came and sat beside you on a park bench? Give yourself advice in third person. That is so key. Looking at the HALT strategy. So if you're hungry, you're angry, you're lonely, you're tired, you're more likely to go back to your old ways. And action mitigates and alleviates that anxiety. Action mitigates you going back to who you were. So if you are hungry, angry, lonely, tired, make sure you have dealt with all of those before you make any big decision. Make sure that you've dealt with all of those before you start catastrophizing about where you are in your life. Embrace your hobbies. That was another one. I don't even know if I spoke about that, but I actually didn't speak about that, so we'll touch on that here before we moved on there. So embrace your hobbies, and this is focusing on rest. This is focusing on doing things which you enjoy. And see, if you tell me, I enjoy doing my work, you are not resting. Your body only has a certain amount of capacity. You have a certain finite amount of energy, and if you're always go in your work, you will eventually burn out. I don't care how much you love work, you will burn out, and every single person needs rest. That could be doing something fun. Like, what is fun to you is fun. And ideally, if we can have something fun which doesn't come with a cost, it's like going out and doing like drinking heavily. That comes with a cost, right? So looking at what's fun for you that doesn't impact your life in a negative way. That doesn't mean you can't go out and drink. Absolutely. If you want to have a couple of beers with your mates and enjoy that, great. But we need to have something which completely allows us to switch off. For me, I love going for sea dips or going to the waterfall. That allows me, I only think about how cold the water is. So what can you do to switch off? And remember that you should not feel guilty for resting. You should not feel like you're on all the time. We live in this hustle culture where everyone's like, I'm so busy. Like, as soon as you speak to someone, they're like, how are you getting on? They're like, I'm so busy, I'm flat out. It's like, weird flex, mate, but okay. Since when has it become cool to be flat to the mat? You can be efficient, you can get things done, but like, you don't need it to be your personality for you to be so busy. And I've definitely fallen into that as well. Take the rest, take the downtime. That's the most productive thing that you can do, because that's what's going to keep you firing long term. So embrace your hobbies. Remember that you have to start somewhere. You have to be the fool. You have to be bad at something before you can be good at something. Be willing to be the fool, because that's what's going to get you to grow more than anything. Let it pass. Realize that if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, if you keep showing up, that is going to pass. It's going to be fine. And even if it's not fine right now, isn't it better to believe that it's going to be fine until it isn't? Then you can deal with that. Build the plane while flying it and deal with those issues when they come. And then obviously keep going. Just do not stop whatever happens, because the alternative is you go back to a life that you don't want to live. And then the last one is you do not need to have an opinion. You can go through life without being judgmental, being, the Daniel that I used to be. You can be someone that only adds to people's lives and doesn't take away from it. So hopefully that is part 2. Finito. Those are some of the insights, some of the frameworks that I use, even just some of the quotes that have been really helpful for me that I reiterate to myself over and over again. And it's really changed the way I think. And remember, we reprogram our minds through repetition, constant repetition. So have these on hand, constantly read through them. And if you need to listen to this podcast once or twice, make sure you follow your boy. So when this podcast comes out, I will be back home from Ibiza. Actually, well, I'll be coming home on the day this is out. So please please light the candles, say your prayers, because I will need it. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this pod once again. And yeah, let's get after it. I'm honestly praying for myself that I come back in one piece from Ibiza. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Big love. I hope you have a banger, and I will speak to you soon.